Hello, we are with Pamela Parks. Hi, Pamela.
Hello, how are you doing?
Excellent. So she's one of our members of the Educators Network. She's writing a book about different language teaching methods, and she can talk for probably months, but she's gonna show us a little briefly explanation of what these main methods for teaching languages are. So, okay, Pamela, what's the first method that you are going to talk about?
So I thought that we would just briefly go over the top pedagogical methods, and we're with the one I think everybody knows, everybody uses all the time, which is total physical response. And that's often abbreviated as TPR. So total physical response is supposed to, it was created in order to facilitate this silent period that students have. Students are usually a little too shy to start speaking immediately. So this method was developed to kind of respect that silent period and to get students more active and engaged to begin with. And it's supposed to be what's total physical response. So the method, you start off by giving commands: stand up, sit down, walk to the door, and then you can make it more complicated. Everybody stand up, sit down. You get your volunteers to come to the front and they give commands. And then you get it more and more complicated as you go on. Okay, class, if Bob stood up, then everybody clap your hands. And it gets more complicated like that. If this total physical response, TPR, has trickled out to all of our other teaching methods. I am always pleased when my colleagues in the math department say, oh, I'm doing this TPR thing. Oh, the English department is doing a TPR, but when it trickled out, it kind of got watered down a bit. So you'll see it like this in other classes. Just, hey, let's get the students more active. You got to link the physical movement to something tangible. So like, I don't know, if your body parts is an easy one to start with, okay? So whenever you say the word head, students have to point to their head, or whenever you say the word arm. Or if you want them to know the word, I don't know, remember, they'll point to their head, get them stand up, get them sit down, just however you can link it together.
Do you have any personal experience of using it?
Oh yeah, all the time. We try, okay, I have a great game I invented. I was subbing for a drama teacher and we were playing charades, and I was thinking, well, there's a lot of people being passive, and so I brought it back to my class. And I teach the top 50 verbs in whatever language I'm teaching. I teach 3 languages. I teach top 50 verbs by frequency because I think that's important for the students to know. And then we do like a reverse charades where the students have decided like what symbol stands for what verb, okay? So like the one they love the most is to go out, in whatever language we're doing, to go out. So one student draws a card and, oh, he's drawn the card to go out. So he gets up and leaves the room, and everybody, a little prop here, everyone has little whiteboards, the best I ever bought with my money, little whiteboards and markers, and they write what they think the verb is, and they show it to me, and if I say yes, then they get up and they do it with him. Soon all 30 students are doing the exact same pantomime motion to remember what the word is. Now, I love that the most.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's total physical response.
All right, so the next one, I think you're going to talk to the grammar translation method.
You want to do that one next? Sure.
Yes, you want me to share the screen for that?
So I'm going to start talking while you share the screen. The grammar translation method gets a bad rap nowadays. It's a very old-fashioned method. It's very old school. But let me implore you to think about putting it in your class for just brief amounts of time, because look, I'm a nerd. The whole reason I learned other languages was so that I could read more. Think about all the amazing literature that's available in other languages. And maybe it's a little beyond your students' abilities, but with the grammar translation method, you can bring really classic, good, solid literature to your students. So grammar translation method doesn't really worry about staying in the target language, and that's why many people don't like it right now, because everyone's trying to stay in the target language as much as possible. But frankly, this is the method I used when I was a professional translator. So there's a lot of use for it in the workforce if you want to get that CTE component, that career and technical education component into your class. This is a good way to do it. So you give the students a little excerpt, and here I've got a little fairy tale. And you can see I have underlined and footnoted some words that I think the students are going to have trouble with. Now,
Right.
the more you read, this is like the best way to learn vocabulary. The absolute best way to learn vocabulary is through reading, because everything is connected, and we'll talk about that in a minute with comprehensive input. But there are like lots of research done on how reading is the best way to learn vocabulary. Far better than flashcards, far better than lists.
Right.
Reading keeps it in context. So I don't want the students to really slow down when they're reading, so I'll often give them hints as to what certain words are. So here I've got a footnote, number 1, to remind the students that it's an imperfect tense. Number 2, my colleagues upstairs in the English language department always give a spelling word as raconteur, and here's a raconte, which comes from that word. We'll have already finished reading Tintin, the comic book, so they'll recognize a couple of words from that, just reminding the students of passé composé. So this is how I do grammar translation method, because I do feel that there's a place for it in the classroom. So that's grammar translation in a nutshell.
You told me that you have an experience with your Japanese class for this.
Oh, with all my classes, I do this in all my classes. Specific experiences, they love to read. And the thing I love to read is stuff that they're not going to find in English. I don't like to do translations. I like to do really authentic, very authentic literature. And I do a little book talk. I have a bunch of books, and I throw them on the table, and I say, guys, come up, look at the books, touch them, open them, let me tell you what this is about, let me tell you what this is about. And then we vote on the book, so everyone has a real buy-in to what we're reading. So,
all right. Should I stop sharing this screen?
Yep. Okay, we can go back to other stuff.
Okay. So the next one you're going to talk is the direct method, right?
Right, the direct method. Oh, I love the direct method. Direct method is exactly as it sounds. You stay in the target language. You never translate. You never succumb to translation. No translation allowed. So it's kind of backwards of the grammar translation method.
Going back to childhood.
Yeah. So you start with a story. You can choose any story you want, and you read it aloud to the students. Now, usually there's a little bit of a popcorn reading where you randomly call on students to read, and that's really fallen out of favor. So what I do is choral reading, where I'll read a line and I'll have the students repeat it. That gets them all pronouncing and everything. But when you read, you get super hammy. Just go over the top acting. I've got a million props. I've got, whatever I need. Little Duolingo plushie, and he goes along and he does things in the story. Like if somebody's taking a drink in a story, he can take a drink, and then the kids know what's going on. You project it on the board so you can write all over it and circle adjectives and point to nouns and everything. And it's beautiful. You get really hammy. Then what you do is you ask the students after the story, you say, do you have any questions? But you ask that in the target language, of course. Now, here's the crucial part, is the students are going to be super shy because they're worried about speaking aloud. They're worried about not being able to finish the sentence. So you'll get somebody who raises their hand, and then they immediately put it down. You need to use a no opt-out strategy. A no opt-out strategy is you do not let the students off the hook. You keep pressing them until they say something, anything. Have posters around the room that say, how do you say blah, blah, blah in the language you're teaching, all right? So you can always point to that and say, comment dit-on, what in français, or comment se dit, whatever. And then, so the students can use that as a crutch. Make sure they finish their sentence. Let them know the whole class is helping them construct their sentence, because other students will start chiming in with stuff. Don't let them off the hook until they've said something. Repeat it back to them. Have them say it again. Have the whole class repeat it. And then be patient when you have to answer the exact same question 4 times, because everyone's picking it up at different rates. Smile and answer the same question all over again. Make the whole class repeat it again. And then you can really get into the nitty-gritties of the story. The students are asking questions about it, you're asking them questions about it. With the direct method, you always want to use some kind of story that has a lot of culture in it, so you could teach the culture at the same time. So that's a really exciting method.
We talk about this before, and yes, and I totally agree with you that culture, you don't just teach the language.
Oh yeah, you cannot take culture outside of language. They have to be connected.
I agree.